Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, a landmark step in the right direction. Campaigners welcome the passing of a new women's rights bill in Tunisia. The call on authorities to fund it properly to keep up the pressure on the fight against domestic violence and sexual inequality. Also, 2 drugs are better than 3. HIV sufferers in Cameroon hope that positive reports from a drug trial using less medication could mean fewer side effects and cheaper treatment. And big names from African stage and screen feature in the grand finale of the Avignon Performing Arts Festival. Choreographers, actors and singers come together in Femme Noire to pay tribute to the late Senegalese poet Leopold Senghor. But first, campaigners have welcomed the passing of a new bill in Tunisia that does away with an article that allows rapists to escape punishment if they marry their victims. It's one change being brought in as part of a landmark move to protect women's rights and crack down on domestic violence.
The legal and political battle lasted 3 years. Activists can finally celebrate their victory. The law aims to protect women from violence, especially from their families. It was adopted unanimously by MPs present in the room.
It's a big victory that will really be complete when society will adopt this law and mentalities change.
From now on, sexual harassment is banned in public spaces. Sexual relations with a minor is punishable by up to 6 years behind bars, and perpetrators can no longer avoid the courts even if they marry their victim. In the streets of Tunis, both women and men welcomed the new legislation.
I hope there won't be any false declarations. We'd like them to pass laws for men as well. But in the end, we can only applaud this law.
Still, for several NGOs and members of civil society, it's a partial victory. They doubt Tunisian authorities will be able to set aside the funds necessary to allow the law to be fully applied. They also demand deeper reforms, especially on laws pertaining to inheritance, marriage with a non-Muslim, and homosexuality.
HIV sufferers in Cameroon who've taken part in a drugs trial that's seen them taking a combination of just 2 drugs rather than 3 are hoping the treatment could mean fewer side effects and cheaper medication. The advance could make a big difference on a continent where around 23 million people are suffering from the virus. Our correspondents sent us this report.
For the last 18 years, this HIV-positive patient, who's asked to remain anonymous, has faced the same daily routine. Every day at meal times, he takes his antiretroviral drugs. For the last 2 years, he's been taking just 2 pills instead of 3. He's taking part in a drug trial looking at the effect of dual therapy on patients who, like him, suffer from the side effects of triple therapy.
Let me tell you, triple therapy gave us a lot of trouble. We were tired, but since we've been on dual therapy, it's much better.
The trial was launched by the French Agency for Research on AIDS with the help of local doctors, like Dr. Toby.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, doctor.
For this infectious disease specialist, the new approach has many advantages. Thanks to the use of medication called lamivudine, patients could have fewer pills to take and pay less for their treatment.
If in a country with limited resources such as ours, we're able to reduce costs and we can improve patients' tolerance to the drugs, I think that would be a very significant improvement.
3 drug therapies have been the norm since the late 90s. There had been worries that using fewer drugs would be less effective and mean patients developed resistance to medication. But the more powerful contemporary drugs are cheaper and seem to be working. Constant advances in treatment are welcomed by those who remember how a diagnosis once almost guaranteed a fatal outcome.
At the time, it was simply associated with death. Today, it's no longer the case. I usually tell the patients, you see, you're lucky we can treat you now. Some didn't get that chance and would have liked to have been in your shoes.
Patients on the dual therapy treatment will continue to receive medical follow-ups over several months before the treatment can be approved and given to others.
At the 2017 Francophone Games in Abidjan, the African wrestling competition gripped onlookers at the Ivorian city on Thursday. Now, the event's the only sport uniquely from the continent featuring in the Games. Popular in West Africa, its practitioners are hoping that it can one day become an Olympic sport. Our correspondents sent us this report.
Bare-handed wrestlers take to a sandy ring like gladiators. Traditional African wrestling is the only discipline from the continent with its own event during the Francophone Games. Athletes have trained hard for the competition. Though it's long been a male-dominated sport, it's starting to draw interest from more and more women.
To be a good wrestler, you have to work very hard.
Vivian is representing Burkina Faso and has no hang-ups about competing in front of her male counterparts.
It's a sport that really fascinates me. I have no difficulty when I wrestle, and especially when I manage to share a few wrestling techniques with the men. It helps make you tough.
But the favourites and the most feared opponents of the competition are the Senegalese wrestling stars.
The Senegalese team.
Wrestling is the king of sports in Senegal, on par with football. During the Francophone Games, these prize fighters rely on the supposed mystical powers of their spiritual leaders.
We pay. We pay the spiritual leaders money to make us amulets. We pay a lot of money.
Tens of thousands of CFA francs are spent on these good luck charms, like this one made from lion hair. At the Avignon Games, Africans aren't the only ones testing their mettle in the discipline. Romanian Olympic wrestlers, although novices in African wrestling, are preparing to take a chance and compete in the unfamiliar competition.
On ne doit pas faire ça. Si tu fais ça, c'est fini.
I'm happy to try it, but I'm not sure if I will make a good competition. It's something new for me, but I will give my everything.
Rendezvous in 48 hours for the final battle for the gold medal.
Well, here in France, the grand finale of a top performing arts event put women from sub-Saharan Africa in the spotlight. The Avignon Festival wrapped up with a staged tribute to late Senegalese poet and politician Leopold Senghor in a performance called Femme Noire, or Black Woman. Our team was there as the curtain went up.
Black Woman is the name of a poem by Leopold Senghor. It was also the closing performance at the Avignon Theatre Festival. Angélique Kidjo, Isaac de Bancolé, and Manu Dibongo sang Senghor to honor the Queen of Sheba.
The Queen of Sheba celebrates not only black women's beauty, but all women's beauty, because we're all Africans. And if we can't find beauty within us, we won't find it anywhere. For me, living together is about accepting other people's differences. What do we learn from these differences? Why shouldn't we be afraid of these differences? Because what they teach us could save our lives.
In this poem by the poet-turned-politician, negritude ushers in reconciliation.
Laisse-moi te dire, Seigneur, sa prière de paix et de pardon. Il est vrai qu'il faut pardonner à ceux qui ont déporté. Bénis ce peuple qui rompt ses liens.
Africa becomes universal, with Senghor's text that opens with the Queen of Sheba and the African woman and opens to embrace the universal. I believe these are things we need to hear if we haven't heard them enough. We must hear them again as we speak about immigration and refugees that are not even necessarily black or white.
Femme Noire, or Black Woman, was created for this iconic festival, a resounding flourish by a man who's remembered for his love of Africa and humanity.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again if you can. Take care.